Hello, lovely people. This is Nicola in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room. I have an idea for a bag I want to make. I haven't done an upcycled denim bag in a while, and I want to combine my love of upcycling denim with my love of scraps. So I'm hoping it's going to work out. We're going to have to wait till the end of the video to see whether it worked out. My sewing machine's on. I have a 15 by 17 piece of black fusible medium weight woven interfacing, which I'm going to build some scrap fabric on. I have a pile of scraps behind my machine, and that's only about half of what was in this massive crocheted bag. I took out anything with a white background, browns, greys, blacks, generally ugly fabric. And yeah, not sure how the colors are going to go together, whether I'm going to try and group the colors like a color wash or just do crazy random stuff. Yep, it's going to grow organically, I think, so I'm going to get stuck in. I threaded my machine up with black thread, top and bottom. Very unusual for me to use black interfacing. It's odd. I'm not going to do any rotary cutting for this. Probably not going to do any ironing. I'm just going to do small cuts with my dressmaking scissors and finger pressing. This took me over an hour. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy quilting, so I guess it is crazy. So by the time I had sewn everything down and trimmed my edges parallel, it shrank from 17 by 15 to 16.5 by 14. So I'm glad I allowed extra so that when I make this bag, I have a big enough piece. It didn't come out quite the way I had wanted it to. I didn't envision it quite like this. I was thinking of smaller pieces, way smaller scraps, but I didn't figure out a way of doing it. I guess I should have used a different technique. And you know what? I might not go ahead and use this for what I think I was going to use it for. I might build another piece of fabric in a different way and see if I prefer that. I may just put this piece aside and make a second thing and then decide which I prefer. I made a few oopsies. At least one piece of fabric I sewed the right side up and I had to unpick and flip it. And there was a couple of places where I sewed along the strip and didn't realize that the strip over here had flipped down again, and so I had to unpick, flip this out, re-sew this bit, and then I flipped it at one point and there was a little tiny triangle of fabric caught in the stitching just there. Luckily I was able to pull it out with no negative effects. So it's all pressed and trimmed and neat now. So I will stop there for now and consider my next steps. It's later in the day now. I've come back to this and I'm taking another look at my finished piece of scrap fabric. It's pretty and colourful. I'm still not sure if this is going to be the one I use for the final bag or for the bag I had in mind. But I grabbed this roll of duct tape, or duck tape as it's called, and I've been positioning it over the fabric here. And actually, I don't mind it. So here's the plan. Cut a piece of denim. I might have to piece some denim because it's going to come from old jeans. Get my piece of denim at the size I want for my bag, which will be a bit smaller than this probably, and cut holes in the denim that are 3 inches in diameter so that when the denim is overlaid on the scrap fabric, you can see the fabric behind it. So at the moment, I'm not sure how it's going to work out because I don't know how many holes I want to cut. I don't know how I want to place them. I don't know if I want them symmetrically placed, randomly placed. Obviously, the more of the fabric underneath that I can see, the more colourful it'll be, more fun it'll be. So I'm going to sleep on this. I'm not going to cut anything today. I'm going to come back to this tomorrow, cut my denim piece out, and then make a decision. But yeah, this is exactly the right size. In fact, I could do different sized holes, but I think I'll probably stick with the one size and just figure out a layout. And then I don't think I'm going to be doing any fusing with the denim to the scrap fabric. What I'll probably end up doing is overlaying it and zigzagging around the raw edges of the denim to apply it to this fabric. At that point, it'll probably be a fairly thick piece of fabric. The other side of it, I was thinking, make a scrap piece of fabric in the shape of a jeans pocket. I can use this as a template and just have plain denim on the back with a scrappy pocket just to brighten it up. So that'll be the shape of it, but obviously it'll be scrap fabric on plain denim on the other side of the bag. And I'm thinking denim handles and some sort of cotton lining. I have quite a few cottons that I have enough yardage of to make the lining. Maybe an inner pocket. But yeah, this is just going to be growing as I'm working on it, and decisions are going to be made on the hoof. You'll have to excuse the mass of band-aids on my hand. I burned my hand a couple of days ago and I thought it was just a surface thing, but of course as soon as I start getting it wet or whacking it on things, the top layer of skin comes off and it looks all weepy, so I covered it up for your benefit. So I'm not totally unhappy with this piece, but I thought, seeing as I've got so many scraps and I enjoy building up scrap fabric so much, I'm going to do a second piece, same size as before, 17 by 15, and I want to use lots of smaller pieces. So I think I'm just going to like randomly chuck a whole ton of scrappy pieces on here, cover the whole area, and then put a layer of this pink tulle over the top, and then I'll stitch it down. So scraps, iron it to get the fusing to attach the majority of the fabric, and then stitch some tulle over the top. That's my plan. Here are some of my options for threads to use. I don't know, I think this is too light. I think all of these are probably too light. Got to make sure there's enough thread on there to do at least the top stitching, and then it doesn't matter what's in the bobbin so much. I think it's going to be this one. It's a nice full spool. In fact, it's a brand new spool because there's no break in the paper there. And one of those beautiful things about sewing scraps with random threads means I have managed to use up a lot of my partly filled bobbins. Don't know why I've got two neon pinks there, and I have no pale pinks in there, so I'm just going to have to fill a new bobbin. Let's use a blue one. So I've got my walking foot in the machine. I have my bobbin filled and my thread loaded up, and I have lengthened my stitches to 3.5, and I'm just going to go up and down just to make sure everything's anchored. Now, do I want to go vertically or horizontally? I think we'll go with horizontal. Stitching is done. Now I just need to trim my edges to make it a nice neat rectangle, and then I'm going to audition it with my duct tape circle and see if I prefer this to the one I made yesterday. Having some technical difficulties with one microphone, switch to the other one. Hopefully that one is happier. Here we go. Finished fabric. I've trimmed it. It worked out 3/4 of an inch smaller on either way. So just a reminder that if you're going to build fabric for something specific, make it bigger than you think you need. I love this. I really love pink and blue and pink tulle and pink stitching. And I'm just going to put it side by side with this one so you can see the difference between yesterday and today. This was yesterday's, this is today's. Very different, lots of extra color, limited palette, completely different method, way quicker. And obviously all of you will have your own opinions as to which you prefer. Now, the interesting thing is when I went and I started putting my little duct tape peekaboo circle on top of the fabric, I started to realize that this one looks very, very similar all over. And so each of my little peekaboo windows is going to look much the same as the one beside it. But if I put it on this one, and if you imagine there's a piece of denim over this with holes cut out of it, and you're looking through these holes, I prefer this one now. I will definitely use both pieces in something, but this is the one that's won the war against against scraps. Both very lovely, but this one is the clear winner. Now it's time to go and start cutting denim. Here's my piece of denim. I have cut it 16 by 14 inches. Now, I'm not doing a box bottom on this because I've got my scrappy panel and my denim panel. I am going to do a kind of gusset afterwards. Where did I write that down? Yeah, the plan was the denim with the holes in, the back to maybe be plain but with a pocket of some kind, and then a strip that goes all the way down, along and up that is sewn on separately. Magnetic snap, if I remember. Denim handles, unless I decide to do webbing at the last minute. I don't know yet what I'm going to do with that. And yeah, we'll see how that comes out. So this is my piece, and this is what I've drawn on the back. I just grabbed a regular pen and I drew 1 inch away from the edges so that I didn't get too close to the seam allowance. At the bottom here, I just put the duct tape, lining it up with the 2 lines there, lining it up with the 2 lines there, and then centered that one in between. And then this one at the top, I did a 2-inch safety zone and then did the same there, there, and then there. So now the scary part where I cut into it. Now, of course, this denim cost me very little, if anything. So if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. Now, shall I be careful how I snip? Because then I could save the denim circles for something. Maybe. I'm going to have to go a little further away from the pen line, though. Yep. That's tough stuff. Okay. Now, this is the exciting part too. Ooh, only just big enough, that piece of fabric. I thought I'd made it way big enough. Now, I could put it this way, or I don't like that big chunk of fabric I used there. I should have used skinnier pieces right from the get-go. Let's try it this way round. I'm also not crazy on this one here. Oh dear. Barely big enough. That's okay. This is just my own design. It's not as if it has to be a certain size. If I have to trim it down, that's fine. Now, I definitely prefer that way around. Can you see that? I have to keep making sure you're seeing it. And of course, when I go edit, it changes the proportions. So I have to be careful to make sure you can see what I'm doing. Now, if I had some of that wash away double-sided tape, I would put some in there, but the tape I have, it's not really wash away. On the other hand, it does work well, and I could stick things down a little bit with that, but I'm not planning to wash this, so then it will stay in there. The other thing I could do is use some steamer seam. Kind of thinking it would have been nice to have done bigger holes, maybe the 4-inch, maybe going around the outside of the duct tape instead so you could see more colour. But it's probably a bit late for that now. Yeah, that wouldn't leave much between. Yeah, that wouldn't leave much fabric between the holes at all, would it? Okay, stop second guessing yourself, Nicola, and quadruple guessing yourself. I'm going to start pinning around the holes. I'm going to pin it like crazy because my concern is that it's going to shift because of the stretchiness of the denim. And of course, now that I've cut a hole in it, it would be more likely to stretch and get out of shape. Ouch. Oh, I've only hurt myself about 6 times today. That's quite good for me. Cutting little snippets of fabric earlier, and I cut my finger very, very slightly, thankfully. Didn't draw blood. But yeah, what with 2 burns in the last week and a razor blade cut, I'm not doing very well at the moment. So I think a trial run would be a good idea. I'm going to turn the camera off while I do that. This is my little sample swatch. I used a block that I had made way back and a scrap of denim, and I zigzagged around. I learnt quickly that I was positioning my needle a little wrong because it was coming over onto the fabric too much, and I just want it to go on the denim. It did go a smidge wavy, but I think maybe with this thicker fabric underneath it, it may be okay, and I can try steaming it as well with the iron in the hope that it will be smooth when it's done. Also, what I thought I might do is just do a line of stitching along where this seam is, maybe in the ditch there, if it's not too lumpy, just to hold things down. And then once I've done all the holes, also I thought I'd probably just go around the edges just to make sure it all stays in place when I'm constructing the bag. All right, cross fingers. Ouch. I've cut the piece for the back of the bag, just a plain piece of denim, and I've interfaced it because partly to stop it from stretching, but also to try and make it almost as heavy as the front of the bag. I know the front's going to be way heavier anyway, but I put some of the SF101 on here. I also took that grey pocket that I had and I cut a piece of denim from the same pair of jeans that I'm using and just did some strip piecing on there, or stitch and flip, or whatever you want to call it. I used a fun little bit of selvage there and used some of the same fabrics that are in the front section. Now what I have to figure out is hemming this. I cut this 1/2 inch bigger. It's going to be a little bit bulky and it's going to fight me. So I think what I'm going to start by doing is turning this forward and then sewing either side and then flipping it so I have a nice neat top end, and then I'll figure out how to do the sides and the bottom of the pockets. Need my large scissors. Where did I put them? Just going to trim the corners off. And then flip this around and hope it works. I'm going to do 2 rows of stitching across the top, 1 around the outside, and then when I apply it to the panel, I'll try and do the stitching directly over the stitching I've already done. So I think when I applique this onto the plain panel, I'm going to do like a classic jeans pocket. So I will go over the stitching line, but I'll also do another line within that. And that'll also help anchor down all these raw edges. Probably should have at least zigzagged this raw edge here. I'm not impressed with this fusible interfacing. It is not very well fused, even though I did my best to press it from both sides. Okay, just need to figure out where this is going to go now. It isn't exactly symmetrical, this pocket. I've noticed when you start to deconstruct jeans, you start to notice things like the back pockets aren't always the same. Sometimes one side is longer and shorter because there's a right and a left, a very specific right and left. But that's good. That's quirky and interesting. I need a ruler. The thing with a magnetic pin cushion. The pins stick to the bottom as well as the top. So I always say that if a bobbin's going to run out, it's going to do it while you're top stitching. Guess what? It ran out. I got all the way along here, up, down, that way, up there, down, and to here. All I had was like 5 more inches of stitching and the bobbin ran out. I just don't believe it. There we are, it's done. Little bit of a off-pieced there, but mostly I managed to get it over the existing stitching on the outer layer, outer stitching, and then the inner thing. It's fairly even. It'll do. Oh, there's my pockets. So here are my 2 panels all ready. And I have dug out magnetic snaps, or a magnetic snap, both parts, of course. Must have lost a bit. There's the washer. Okay, so it would be nice to have a magnetic snap on that. I think it elevates it somewhat. So I'm going to have that in the wings, and I was going to go for denim handles, but you know what? I think it needs more colour. So I am going to use pink webbing. This is a really nice polyester one that's not hard and uncomfortable to use. And I've used it in a lot of bags, and it lasts really well. It doesn't pill unless you catch it on some Velcro or something like that, in which case it's not happy. But it does seem to be pretty sturdy, even though it's softer than the nylon stuff. Now what I need to do is I need to cut a strip for my bag gusset. I want it to end up at 5 inches deep. So I'm going to cut it 6, just going extra today. And I'm going to cut it 46 inches long. I measured it down, across, and up, and added an inch on each end so that if it doesn't work out exactly right, I can fudge it. So I'll probably need to find another pair of jeans with an intact leg. I don't think there's any such thing as a 46-inch inside leg when it comes to jeans. So I think it's safe to say I'll be piecing 2 pieces of leg together. Okay, you may hear weed whacking in the background. My oldest son came home from work early and he went outside and started cutting grass and stuff, which is rather nice of him because normally he doesn't do that. Let's see. I have cut 1 long strip. Actually, I cut 2 strips and seamed them, let's be honest here. I cut them 6 inches by 24 inches. Now, I'm really winging it from here on because I've never done a bag with this construction before. I'm only going on what I have seen on the numerous tutorials I watch on YouTube. Excuse me, rummaging around in my little boxes here, but I need to just grab a chalk pencil. And I need to just make a mark rather than snip in and make a notch, I'm just going to make a mark for the halfway point on here. Actually, yes, I am, because the halfway point on the bag will match up with this seam, and I don't think I have to actually worry about lining anything else up necessarily. There's a little bit of stretch in this denim. I found another pair of jeans with very similar shade, which was nice. So if I have to clip this, I'll do it when I get to it as I'm sewing it, so that way I don't clip it in the wrong spot. So I'm going to start clipping now. So this definitely is a departure from my usual method of making bags, because normally I just box the bottom because it's easy, right? Just easier. And I often balk at the idea of doing something where you have to, say, put a cylinder into a tube. A cylinder into a tube? No, that's not what I meant. Put a circle into a cylinder. Right, that's what I meant. Or if you have to, like this, go around a right angled corner. I think what I probably will do is I'll start stitching at this seam and I'll go that way, and then I'll come back to here and go that way. That sound like a good plan to you? I hope so. Try not to stretch this. And of course, once I have finished the exterior of this bag, I am going to have to make a whole nother inner bag, but it'll be a lot quicker because I won't have all this scrap fabric to build. Now, I did allow for a very generous seam allowance. Half an inch is way bigger than I normally do, but I think I'll just try with a 3/8, because if the bag is a bit deeper, that's a good thing. You can fit more in. Just had a little panic. I thought, better make sure that I'm sewing it to the right part of the bag. Yes, this is the top because there's a bigger gap here. Okay, let's grab a pair of scissors and just have them ready in case I need to snip. Oh, I don't like doing this. Okay, I am going to snip right where the denim strip meets the edge of the fabric, the end of the fabric. Oh, and that was in the wrong place. I should have done it a little bit sooner, I think. Let's see if I can get round the corner without completely messing this up. I think what I'm going to do before I turn the corner, just for strength, I'm going to back stitch and then go forward again. Then I'm going to turn the corner, pull my fabric around. Actually, the slit doesn't necessarily have to be perfectly positioned because it just helps everything go around that corner. Okay, and I'm going to double stitch this thing and then carry on. Okay, I've got quite a bit sticking out there, but that's fine because I'm going to sew it on to both parts and then I will trim it. Oh yes, it looks good. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. See where I snipped it? I snipped it level with this. I probably should have snipped it level with where the seam allowance was going to be, which is over here. So I'll know that for the next corner. I'm pleased with that. Before I put the second side on, I am going to make a chalk mark for where the top of my other panel should land. So here's the progress I've made on day 2. The outer bag is constructed. The gusset went in beautifully, despite my reservations. There's the front, there's the back. And tomorrow I will make a lining. And then once I've done the lining, I can pop in the webbing and the magnetic snaps, and it should be all downhill from here on in, because the hard work is done, in my opinion. Day 3. I love that I've got all these free days in order to get this done without rushing. So I've decided on this for my lining. It's not a super bright fabric, but it is very denim-y, and it does go rather well with the denim. And it's one of the plainer fabrics that I put in the stash purely for linings. So that works. I'm going to give it a little iron before I start sewing. So I've got 2 pieces cut, which are 16 by 14. I have 2 strips cut, which are 6 by 24, which I am going to sew together end to end like I did with the denim to make the gusset. I only had 1 meter of it, so I couldn't do it all in one piece, but the seam does help to locate where I want my center to be, which is actually quite helpful. I have a couple of small squares of the SF101 cut because I'm going to put a magnet. What's the name of it? Magnetic snap. There we go. I'm going to install a magnetic snap into the lining. I like to have a little bit of support behind the fabric for that so it doesn't rip out with use. So I'm going to be ironing that onto the back in the location of my magnetic snap. And then because I had a very conveniently sized piece of fabric left from the 1 meter of fabric, this just happened to be an offcut, and it's the perfect size to make an internal pocket. So folded in half, that will fit beautifully inside the bag. That needs a press as well because that's where the fold was on the bolt. So now I can get on with making the lining. My lining is built. I installed the magnetic snaps. I was a bit disappointed that I managed to make a thread pull and run horizontally on both of them. I'd have thought that the interfacing would have helped avoid that. But thankfully it's not too visible in that fabric. The other thing I did obviously was install the pocket. If you want to know what size the fabric was when I started out, it was approximately 13.5 by 8 3/4. And then of course I folded in half with the right sides out, sew around it, leaving a turning gap at the bottom, and then top stitch the top. And then when I'm applying it, it closes up the gap at the bottom there. And I use a seam allowance of 1/4 inch for that. I placed it 3.5 inches from the top, which is fairly centrally on the panel. And I'm really hoping that it's going to fit inside the other bag. I used a 1/2 inch seam allowance for this, but then tailed it off to 3/8 at the top because I think I used more of a 3/8 for the other bag, but I just wanted the main part of this to be a little bit smaller so it doesn't bag inside the denim one. So now what I need to do is grab my bag here and decide how long I want my handles so that I can baste my handles to the outer before putting the two pieces together. I decided on my usual 24 inches long for the handles. I like a tote bag to have a handle that's long enough for you to put your whole arm through and put it on your shoulder rather than just have it in your hand. And this stuff frays like the devil, so we're going to just give it a little bit of heat. There we go. Now I just need to work out where I'd like my handles spaced. I'll baste them on and then I will put the two bag pieces right sides together and I'll nearly be finished. I've turned the lining inside out, put the exterior inside, and I've clipped all the way around the top. Looking good so far, but of course the true test is the sewing. I've sewn all around the top with approximately a 1/2 inch seam. With all this bulk, I feel like a wider seam allowance is a little bit of a safer option. And when I went over the straps, I doubled back, so there's 3 rows of stitching holding them on for extra strength. And it fitted beautifully. Luckily, I nested my seams. So on the side gussets, I had my seam allowances going in on the denim and out on the lining so that it kept the bulk down. So this is my favorite part of a bag, birthing it. Have to make sure you left the hole big enough to get everything through, because this is quite a bulky piece, but let's give it a go. So just 2 steps to go now. I'm going to press the top so that that top edge is neat and crisp. I'm going to hope I've left enough room for top stitching between the magnetic snap and the top edge. And then I will close up the gap in the lining. My main concern now, well, I have 2 concerns now. This denim is quite bulky at the seams, and also I'm going to have to be careful not to let my foot hit the magnetic snaps. So I think I might have to have it like hanging off the edge when I've got the foot on there. Let's check it out. I think I might be all right, actually, if I line up my right-hand side of my foot with the edge of the fabric. I think I might get away with it. But I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start off to the side somewhere. This flat part went through without a hitch. This guy here did try and catch on the bed of my machine. It's actually looking a little bit scratched up now, which is disappointing. But I did manage to top stitch without it shooting my stitches off to the side, which sometimes has happened. Because I used black thread, it looks fine on the outside. It just blends in with the denim. I'm pretty happy with that. time for the last step. Woohoo! This bag feels like it's been quite the marathon. Where's my gap? There's my gap. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a little less slapdash than usual. I am going to change my thread out for something that blends in a bit better with this blue, because I don't mind the black visible when I sew the pocket in, but when you do this last step, I know you could hand stitch it. If you were a real perfectionist, you'd hand stitch it so that it was pretty invisible, but I'm going to change out for a blue thread so I can machine sew it and have it almost invisible. And here we are, all finished. I like the way the pink handles pick up the pink in the little windows that I made. There's the back. And there's the inside with its little slip pocket and lots of room. So there she is. Beautiful bag made out of upcycled jeans and scraps. It's funny how, as many scraps as you use, the scrap bag doesn't seem to get any emptier. The handles are a good length. Doing them 24 inches means that when I'm holding the bag by my side, it's not dragging along the floor. But also, if I put it on my shoulder, it's just at the right level there. And I can put my arm around it, stop it swinging around, and it will carry a lot because it is very voluminous. Couldn't be more pleased with that. And I'm really glad I put the magnetic snap on to save it gaping when you're using it. I do think that's always a good idea. You never regret the extras, do you? If you just spend a little bit of extra time on putting the extra little accessories on, you never regret it. Can't have too many pockets. Fastening's good. I could even have put a D-ring in there for keys to attach to or something, but yeah, I don't think it needed it. It has pockets for that anyway. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's gone on pretty long, but there was a lot of work in that bag, and you got a little bonus of 2 ways to build scrap fabric, not just the one. So you can pick whichever you like better. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you again soon with something else.